And thank you for reminding me, recording it. Thank you. And then ultimately, she's currently doing a postdoc at Chalmers University of Technology, where she's continuing her work on Living Lab. Thank you very much, Elena. I'm looking forward to this. We've got about 15 minutes, and then I'm concluding it. For those that are attending, it's nice if you can keep the questions till the end of the session. Thank you. Cheers.
Hi. First of all, do you see my screen? Because there is some technical.
I can see your screen, and we can hear you, and we can see you as well.
Then we're on the right track. So hi, everyone. Really nice to be here with you. And it's always nice to network, especially when it's about cross countries and cross continents. And today I would like to a little bit talk about the lab where I'm doing my postdoc, but I have a long history of living labs. I worked during my PhD at KTH Living Lab in Sweden and in Stockholm, and I was really amazed by different opportunities this type of applied research test-bed platforms can give. And I decided to continue my postdoc also at Living Lab, also in Sweden, but in Gothenburg, a little bit more southern place. And some of you might already be here, some of you might not. Be free to contact me, and we will always like to invite and do study visits for all interested. But before, to inspire you to come or to learn more, let me share a few ideas. And I title my presentation, HSB Living Lab, Innovating with the Users, because this is my research focus. And that's where I think it doesn't matter which building life stage are you working with, design or materials or construction or operation. Most of the studies I was kind of like touched and had a chance to integrate into my pipeline, show that understanding users, innovating with users on different stage can really bring benefits. And that's what I would like to a little bit highlight today. But before we go to this more like niched topic, a little bit about HSB Living Lab. It is a 5-store building, and it is here at Chalmers and in Sweden, in Gothenburg. We have 29 apartments, and around 29 tenants can host it. So you can easily do math in your head and see, probably understand that we have some normal apartments, like 1 room, 2 rooms, 3 and 4. But we also have students like shared clusters, where we can definitely see that it's much less square meters per user. So, but also which give us a diversity of different spaces and ways we're using them, and also ways we're performing the whole building together. And also definitely the idea was to think about sustainability from different perspectives, not only environmental, social, also economical, because we have enough expensive demo projects which we can scale. This project took in consideration the economical viability as well. And talking about also idea of the building, because I understand this community is much more interested in the building side. I would like to highlight one thing, that this building were designed for being placed at Chalmers for only 10 years. So what make it clear that those who were in the beginning of the process have to think about, okay, in 10 years, we need to move this building. So we need to deconstruct it, deassemble different parts, and we need to move it somewhere else. And now it's year number 8. So in a couple of years, it's pretty high probability that we need to move this building from Chalmers, from maybe even from Sweden, but we discussed few places. And definitely those who designed building, they understood that they should think about deconstruction from the beginning. So, and they of course thought on the many modular kind of projects. They consider the container mindset, container logic, where we can say that this building could be transferred by 44 like factory built modules structure. So 44 tracks or even less might really help us to move this building from place A to place B. So that's kind of interesting starting point to when you have this ambitious to design a future place, to also from the day one think I need to kind of kill the darling, at least at one place, and build it somewhere else again. So that's actually also to understand the context of flexibility and temporality in this specific place here in Sweden, in Chalmers. And this kind of external factor of the building, like conditions to develop this building, also creates very strong internal kind of reflection, where we try to also look at the rooms not as a more like square meters, but more cubic meters. How can we really interpret space in a much more efficient way? And even in our advertisement, when we rent out the students' apartments, we talk about cubic meters of life, not about square meters, because clearly we make the use of much more space when we could like do before, if we would not have this condition about container thinking. So let's kind of all create a little bit unique setting for this building, and unique setting for general perception of the space and its engineering and architectural kind of style. And talking about that, as was mentioned before, it's not only a building, it's also a research lab. It's a combination between two kind of mindsets, living space and laboratory. So we try to still highlight some topics and themes to focus, but of course it's a very brief starting point. We can definitely go much broader, and study like mine doesn't fit most of these categories, but still materials and technologies of the building like that, minimization of resources, multifunctional common spaces, accessibility, not only from the point of user perspective, but also from the point of how we can make this accessible for different stakeholders and different interested in innovation actors, as well as production process, how we can really innovate the way we are designing building, constructing and operating. And again, this is a unique case, especially for those who are working with idea of possible move of the construction, and how we can make our architecture, how to say, more flexible to relocate. And today, with the climate change situations, with different political conflicts, it's becoming more and more relevant. If we like look at UN Habitat, for example, programs, they're calling for this type of technology being tested. So in this case, this is a good example how we can test temporary architecture projects. And definitely the project is funded heavily by company HSB, which is a housing company, and they have a very clear focus on operational side, how to make this even temporary building feel home, be home, and don't make people feel that they're like in a temporary infrastructure project. And again, what is HSB Living Lab? As I said before, it is a building itself with a lot of different components and systems. Definitely, when we talk about Living Lab, we need to consider residents and users and their life with a higher resolution, plus also discussion on ethics and privacy should take place. We can't do this type of projects alone, because we need to have different collaborations, cooperations, and that's, I think, all of you also doing a lot. And obviously research, all of these should be kind of handled by a research process and research initiatives. And if we come back to the definition, many of you know this definition, and many of you know about a European network of living labs. They are focusing on a few things, such as real-life environment, such as iterative approach, such as co-creation, cooperation, rapid prototyping, and multiple actors, stakeholders. Once you have these elements, you can say, yes, we do have living lab. Because we also, I think most of us have a lot of these projects where it's testing, but only one actor, or testing, but completely ignoring the users, not only tenant, but maybe users as designers or architects. So in this case, there are a few pressure points to call your project Living Lab. So I would like really also to stress it. But why specifically we need to innovate with the user? Why I'm trying to be this ambassador of the end life of the building, or use life and end life? Why it's so important now to talk more serious about end users, and not only mention them in our occupancy rate energy plus modeling. So I think a latest IPCC report clearly stated that if we want to decrease the carbon emission footprint in our building industry. The middle graph B on the right side, building industry. The yellow color bar, which has the potential to go down in CO2, called end-use technology adoption. And if you carefully read this part of the IPCC report, you will see that how much actually pressure will come to the end user technology side. I met few people from who stay behind this report chapter writing and from Paris, and I spoke Science Po in Paris, and we spoke a lot about, is it behavior, is it activities, is it efficiency. It is a big field which normally is a black box, some sort of parameter in my modeling design phase. But now we see that energy gap is big. We need to address it. How to address it, we will talk a bit later, but we need to start to include it much earlier. And even if we say, oh, we're only doing facade in the early stage where we might not know who will use and how a user interact with facade. Yes, well, depending on even family size, depending on their activity rate, there are different strategies how we can address these things. So the point is that highly significant researchers over the world point that there is a potential and we need to grasp it somehow. And talking about how, when we come back to HSB Living Lab as a project, we started with a lot of angles and perspective to analyze, not only physical aspect of the building, but also its kind of personality of people who will live here. Also culture, is it multicultural place? Is it monocultural, and so on and so on. We try to really work with different perspectives while doing the design phase. And obviously, maybe some of you know Shay Hagi, the researcher who was in the beginning of HSB Living Lab design and development. He was very strong believer into collaboration between different actors on the early stage. He was strong believer that we need to bring those who will live in this building. In our case, we knew that it will be students. And we need to really, before we start to put first foundation layer, we need to start working with them. And many of you know this report, Next Generation Living Labs. Also, TU Delft project is mentioned and highlighted well there. So we would say that in the beginning, it was this hypothesis that by understanding daily behavior in a high resolution, we can design a better building. And this hypothesis actually validated itself within time when we are in the almost end of the first iteration of life of this building. And it is an ongoing project. If Shay was more like in the beginning of the design phase, how to design spaces, how to consider things, it shouldn't stop just on the design phase. It should continue. And that's where like my role now to do a lot of participatory activities around everyday life, around how they cook, how they do laundry, how they like do cleaning, and so on and so on. Because life is happening now, and this life requires resources, which building's supposed to provide our tenants. And it's not only about saying that it's a research project, please participate, but it's also understanding we have a value to co-create with you, help us to do a better product for you, help us to deliver a better service for you, better comfort, and so on and so on. And definitely the good kind of good and bad side to do it in Europe is it's a very strong pressure from the ethical approach, which I personally respect a lot and consider that, yes, it might slow down the research project. Yes, it might create pressure to remove some element, but it also in the end will build the trust, which is not always a case in kind of idea when you have access to the end users. And HSB Living Lab Plus is also idea that Living Lab is the starting point, how we can go outside to the neighborhood level. And in one of the projects, we needed to consider more social groups. And I asked HSB to contact their members and to go outside just our Living Lab. So Living Lab, again, I always consider that it's a starting point. It's a dot on the map from where we can just build more strategies to collaborate with citizens and other stakeholders. And talking about stakeholders, about who? Talking about users, it sounds sometimes very easy. Oh, you just do co-creation. But in reality, there are a lot of frictions and a really long path to reach the users, because we need to go from steering board with their like strategies. We need to go from management group and their priorities. We need to go create project groups who are competent to work with the end users, social science, behavioral science, psychology, cognitive science. Then we can really reach our users. So it's kind of not a fast track, but those who believe that users engagement is important should be ready for this kind of process. And a bit like to wrap all this, what I said, it's more than 200 projects so far were tested at HSB Living Lab. And I will start with a topic which probably most of you are interested. Definitely, it's a lot on work on facade, and we tried different type of facades and different projects related to facades. How we can do really diversity? Yeah, because we created a structure where we design exchangeable walls elements in our structure, so we can test different type of isolation materials or kind of a PV panel solutions. So facade itself is a kind of living lab, and we can compare different rooms, like indoor comfort and energy consumption from heat and so on and so on. So the idea of flexibility, and actually this fact that this building is temporary, create this actually opportunity to make the building much more flexible for research. Of course, big part of the research portfolio is energy, and from facade and PV panels, battery storage and energy management systems, smart apps, heat recovery from the showers. The list is huge. It is really a topic which is important. But my one reflection here, it's not only about doing research, but also share research with society. I was surprised when I announced the Everyday Energy seminar this spring, and it was room packed with just neighbors and ordinary people who have so many questions while we have energy crisis in Europe. So also Living Lab is a place to meet and really share knowledge and do valorization with the society. So I was surprised how big interest it actually is towards this topic. Obviously, water is a big discussion, and there are a lot of studies on the water quality and so on. From one side, you can say, well, but in Sweden, you have a lot of water. Why do you care? Yeah, because we think that we shouldn't be so selfish and only care about ourselves, which is part of the journey here. But also, can we like collaborate with South Africa and help them with their like avoidance of zero water day, which they had a few years ago? How we can really develop technology which can be used in other parts of the world. And that's where like 50 liters program, where we try to minimize consumption and really just see how we can really be smart enough, but also without compromising comfort too much. So that's kind of a lot of technological tests happening in our showers. In my shower, I have several solutions for the water cleaning or heat recovery from the shower. Laundry. A little bit of the history. HSB was the pioneer 100 years ago in the public laundry. Idea that laundry could be shared as a social place, but also infrastructural share, that not all apartments here have laundry machines and dryers. So it's pretty central part. And also we went really deep into the idea of how we can understand the different behavioral aspects and water quality, because today we already recognize that all these laundry systems create a lot of, deliver a lot of plastic into water systems, and we try to solve this type of problems. Of course, resource management on all scales, from materials of the building to how users treat their own resources, such clothes, such mobility, and so on and so on. How we can support both engineers, construction side, and other. Now, for example, from the construction side, we have a big project related to designing with earth. We are testing the clay wall in one of them, like for indoor now, but we also will test outdoor since next spring. So it's a lot of kind of discussion about more like Sui-Kit diagram of resources within this building. I'm just checking the clocks. Yes, I have a couple of minutes. Definitely about how we live. It's a lot about like food system, resource materials, sharing stuff, and so on. It's a very socially focused type of studies. But again, question how it might relate to, let's call it a facade and design. Yeah, because sometimes some students do have balcony with the sun, some students don't, and they are really designing the solution how to really like create events on the like sunny side of the building. So it's a lot of kind of, even in the end kind of life or a use stage of the building, it's a lot of possibilities to reactivate the initial ideas of architects and building designers. So it's kind of really showing that potential could be used even more. The same with this exchangeable walls, how we can really understand the life inside from the point of which type of facade is designed in specific part of the building. And definitely smart home is in Sweden in general, one of the most digitized country per capita. Definitely we consider topic of technology in our home, but also the discussion how to balance presence of technologies and respecting the privacy and ethical attitude. How we can really approach the technology with respect to users' needs and their preferences. And that's where the idea of co-creation and shared responsibility is becoming crucial to succeed. So I think I will stop here and I will stop sharing my screen to also save some time for the other speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elena, for this talk. If you have any questions, please try and keep it for the end. We hope we might have 10 minutes or 5 minutes for a quick discussion. And for those that can stay longer, you can obviously stay a bit longer. But the speakers might also have to leave at 1. Thank you very much. The next speaker we have is Professor Andy van Dobbelstein, who is a full professor of design, climate design, sustainability, and sustainable coordinator at TU Delft. He's also a principal investigator with the AMS Institute. Yeah, Andy's got a very long CV, but he's done many things. But he's also a faculty advisor, of 3 successful TU Delft solar decathlon teams, presents an online net zero energy design course, and has conducted numerous national, international research and on projects on energy transition, climate adaptation, circularity, and other sustainability themes. Thank you very much, Andy. If you want to check should we check whether you can share your screen?
Yeah, I'm
possible?
having a look now. Oh dear.
Let's see. There's that button at the bottom, share.
Yeah, I see that. And since I have a new computer, I think I need to quickly allow my system to share, but normally it gives a notification then.
Let's see.
Well, you know, on these days, when one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong.
Yeah, don't worry. We didn't have time to check all this beforehand, so I understand.
No. It should be, but I don't see really this one. Oh yeah, open system preferences. Oh, yeah, I'll change that. Just a moment, I need to do the local admin stuff. That's when you switch from
all the technology that we're dealing with here now.
I need to quit and be back again. So I'll be quickly back and then I can share. Okay.
Good. I'll discuss your abstract in the meantime. Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Good. So thank you. Andy will be sharing with us work on the sustainability ambitions of TU Delft, where one of the goals is to make the campus a large living lab for sustainable innovation and experimentation. So they're looking at an entire transition of vision, ambition, action, and an action plan that was written with a budget of 100 million euros. Of the budget, 20 million euros is allocated for innovation on the campus, for which governance structure and decision processes was designed. This is currently in use, and the researchers can submit their plans for innovation and pilots and living labs, which will then be assessed by the working group that advises the Campus Innovation Committee. So the first of 6 has been approved and will now be starting, and Andy will be sharing with us some of that work. Andy, we can see your screen. That's all working.
Yeah.
We can.
That's
Perfect.
true.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very
sorry,
much.
now it's doing something terribly wrong. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to get my microphone working again. And now it's doing something I don't do. Okay. Anyway, I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up. Thanks, Jan. And maybe I'm not visible. Can you hear me or not?
We can hear you perfectly, and we can see the screen. All's well,
Okay.
thanks.
But you can't see me, I guess, right?
We can't. I can let's see if I can change you. Switch on your camera as well.
Why is it doing this? Okay, I will just move quickly because we lost quite some time. So at TU Delft, we have our sustainability goals for 2030, which are these: carbon neutral, circular, climate adapted by 2030, contributing to quality of life and biodiversity, and also exposing and testing sustainability on the campus. And that, of course, links a lot to the living labs that we're talking about today. What are we doing? We have a rector who says that we want to be the climate university of the world, so we need to take action on the campus as well. So sustainable operations are an important part of that. Community involvement also, because we want to involve students, academics, but also supporting staff management, visitors. Our core work, of course, is in education. So we're now looking how to implement sustainability in education at every faculty that we have. And related to research, the campus should be functioning as a living lab. So we're not talking about separate living labs, but the campus as a whole should be a living lab for all sorts of innovations on sustainability. Now, if we start with sustainable operations, there's a lot of things we're focusing on, and I have teams working on each of these themes that you see on the left-hand side. And what we try to do is, apart from the action taken at our university, that we also link it to research, so that what we do is actually being assessed and evaluated and changed when necessary. Now we have the Green Village on our campus, which is an experimental site where once the old faculty building of architecture was situated, where we test out all sorts of innovations, mostly related to sustainability of housing. To give some examples, this is one of my solar decathlon projects with the students from 2014. It's still there on the campus. It's now it's being used by a Ukrainian family, so refugees are living there now, and they're part of the experiment as well. And we also have the Moor Pavilion, which was from the Solar Decathlon 2019, which is now functioning as a meeting space on the campus. So these are real life living labs that are functioning. The last Solar Decathlon project we did, sadly stayed in Wuppertal because they have their own living lab over there. And it's now open to visitors from Germany, and we decided not to take it out, to take it apart again and travel back to the Netherlands, but we leave it there, which is about 3 hours drive from where we are in Delft. Now, these are things that were already happening, but we also have our sustainability program, which also has 20 million euros available till 2030 to invest on innovation on the campus in forms of living labs. And there's an innovation funnel for decisions on which projects we do and which we don't. One of these projects that has been awarded or has been approved is the aquathermal energy pilot with a catering firm on the campus, where we test out how water can be the source of heat and cold for this building, and then seeing what is the influence on the water quality, temperature, and also the aquatic ecology. But also other things we're doing on the campus are actually being monitored a lot. So we have 2 buildings that are energy neutral according to calculations, but of course we need to monitor and see where it goes wrong, if it goes wrong, and if we can steer by. And there's new developments on the South Campus on the right-hand side, where all these new buildings have to be super sustainable. And of course that requires also some innovation here and there. Also our energy system that we're adjusting to geothermal heat on the one hand side and renewable power production on the campus is actually a living lab where we test out all sorts of things, especially interseasonal storage systems for high, mid, and low temperature systems to see if that functions well, if we can exchange energy, etc. We also approved a plan to combine biodiversity and climate adaptation. There's a strong link between these two. So bringing in valuable green and water storage on the campus will also help to become more climate adaptive. And that's also something we are measuring at the moment, and we will keep measuring in the future. Interesting thing is also a living lab for new financial approach. So the total cost of ownership with a CO2 price is being used at the moment for all important financial decisions. That's really important because the current economic system doesn't really support sustainability a lot. It actually leads to the choice of other things. And in procurement, we are trying to get our supply chain sustainable by using the R ladder, starting with refusing actually to purchase things and reducing the demand and reusing products, etc. But we cannot do it alone. So I have new agreements and circular contracts, which is also innovative, with suppliers and partners that collaborate with us so that they can actually change their supply chain. We're also a living lab for sustainable food on the campus. This, of course, has caused quite some turmoil because we decided to go for much less animal-based food on the campus, which is actually scientifically supported by the Lancet journal, which did research on what is a planetary health diet. So a health diet that the Earth can carry. And we decided to go for food that follows this division of types of food. And as you can see, about 90% of it is plant-based and a little bit of animal-based left over. In our case, it means that we have some vegetarian and vegan restaurants at the moment on the campus, not all of them yet, and not all will be changed. But that's also important to measure, to see how people behave, if people are satisfied. At the moment they are, but there's also still variety to choose from. And we'll have to see if that works. A more innovative approach to food production will be to combine buildings with food production on the roof and in facades to find synergetic effects of carbon emissions, waste, nutrients in wastewater, and also to make those greenhouses support the energy system of the building. So that's also something we want to test out. It's not there yet, but there's several research projects that already do that. Then also an interesting one is travel. Travel is one of the most carbon emitting activities from our university. And in Europe, we decided to go for the avoidance of flying on short haul distances up to 800 kilometers or 8 hours of train ride. You should actually take the train or a bus or electric car. And even in the rest of Europe, we are supporting other forms of travel than just flying, unless you have really good reasons not to. And this, of course, is being monitored as well to see if it works. So altogether, you can find the latest news on this website of sustainability at TU Delft. And good to mention also that we are not the only one, of course, taking action. Chalmers is a university we collaborate with, also with Aachen, with also with Milan, with Zurich. And we produced this report that describes basically the 5 different approaches on these universities. And I recommend it for you to download it. It's available for free, of course, as PDF, and it can inspire other universities to do similar things. So that's what I want to finish with, and I'll give the floor back to Jan.
Thank you very much, Andy. This was a very quick and jam-packed presentation. So I'm sure we'll have lots of questions.
You had to catch up.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay. And then for our third speaker today, which is Sui-Kit or Eddie. Eddie, thank you very much. I know this is end of the day already in Singapore, so you had to. It's getting late there, but and Eddie received a B engineering degree in building services and a PhD degree in acoustics and vibration from Hong Kong Polytechnic University in Kowloon, and he's held numerous industry positions with Emerson Climate Technologies, Johnson Electric Industrial Manufacturing, Armstrong World Industries. He was an assistant professor at Hong Kong Polytechnic and the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, until 2013 for a different period for both. And he's currently a professor at the National University of Singapore. Eddie, thank you very much. We're really looking forward to your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Okay,
thank you very much. So I may move back. Come here. I think I present another approach. We are partnering with a small laboratory. We also have the Living Lab in our campus. We're also targeting for the carbon neutral by the 2030 in our NUS. But now I want to bring back what I want to discuss today is another facility in our campus trying to do as a test bed for other technology. Particularly, we are focused on the tropical technology to solve our issue, particularly our issue. So you see this slide, in fact, is what our donor in around 2016. We have collaborated with one of the major developer in Singapore, is what we call City Development Limited, CDL. They donated around 2.5 million to our university to set up 2 laboratories. One of the laboratory now I'm talking here is the Tropical Technology Laboratory, and we developed by our Department of Architecture. We also developed using another half of the funding. We developed another laboratory. It's what we call Smart Green Home inside our Lecturer Energy Building to deal with more indoor and human behavior issue. But today I will focus on what the Tropical Technology Laboratory, what we call the T-Square Lab. To be quick, in fact, as what I said, in 2016, this is one of the news we announced that is the CDL is donating around $2.25 million to our school. And at that time, we still a School of Design and Environment. Now we merge with the Faculty of Engineering, become a largest college in NUS. We call it College of the Design and Engineering. So the journey is to start not only from 2017 or 2016. In fact, before the 2016, we start to discuss with the CDL with the funding. The story also is we also participate in the solar decathlon. So we want to bring back some of the material to develop some of the research in the Singapore. After that, we are looking for the place in NUS. Our campus is not too large, so that we spend some time to identify the piece of land to rebuild the laboratory, and we start around 2017 to have the approval from our university to start to build our laboratory. So we go through all the preliminary design consultants. Eventually, we have end of our construction around the end of 2017, and we start to build what our research. I will talk about the first round of the research, what kind of research we are focused, particularly targeting for some of our tropical interests. I will skip this video because this video probably is 2 minutes long. It's kind of construction. You can see what start from very beginning. A piece of land is I may use the laser pointer. You can see a piece of land here, and we build the laboratory until we have the framework. This is what the basic framework we are trying to build to on top of that, we will have a lot of different instruments and testing on top of it. So here you see this piece of land is next to our dormitory. In fact, this is the faculty dormitory. I used it to stay one of the units in this block. So here the swimming pool for this dormitory, and this piece of land originally we serve our phase 3 development for our faculty apartment, but now still unused. That's the reason we use this piece of land for our small facility here. Why so difficult? We want to pick this land and identify this piece of land because, and why we pick this location, because This location, in fact, is we have a minimum shading from almost all of the 4 directions. In fact, this direction is the east and west, so that we try to avoid the east and west of the sun. And also, even though we have south and north side, so we also have not too much obstruction for the solar energy. Because one of the interests for us is the solar energy and solar irradiation. That's the reason we place our facility in this location to avoid all the shading. For a very beginning, we decided our focus in the solar energy, particularly solar PV and also the building integrated PV panel. And then the second topic we are very interested is the productive facade. In Singapore, we have some top priority of security issue. One is the energy security. We have very small island, so our land is not too much large, so that we have very limited energy resources. All around us is all the Indonesia and Malaysia island, so that our wave and also our tidal is very little, energy from them is very little, even though Singapore have no typhoon, so that our wind speed is very low. One of the more promising energy, renewable energy, in fact, solar energy. But we also encounter another issue is the food security issue. So Singapore also have the strategy to maintain a certain level of food security, even though we are a very small country. That's the reason we also try to study how we can produce the food on our facade, not only on the roof level. And this may also competing with the solar energy. So I will talk about later on how we can balance on that. Another topic is a very challenging topic, a tropical timber structure. There's not too many tropical timber building in our region. We start to have to build more and more to test how the timber structure can be sustainable in the tropical weather, because we are very humid. This study also trying to study the timber structure in the Singapore situation. Definitely, we're also interested in cross ventilation and the water system. The building itself, in fact, is built with almost more than 200 sensors. We have all the weather station. We have all the indoor and outdoor sensors to monitor all the wind speed and also the temperature. And also, we also monitor all the solar energy and other things. So including the temperature, humidity, air velocity, solar irradiation, light intensity, and flow rate. Original design is a self-sufficient. We are fully powered by the roof panel, but right now we connect to the power because for some of the experience we have used more energy. So we also have an option we can switch to the grid to connect the grid to draw some more power if we need for the experience. The building design, in fact, is that we have 8 number of the small room here. Each room around 1.8 meter times 1.8 meter, very small room. Each side of the facade is exactly facing east, south, north, west. So from our first run of the test, we want to test the balcony and without balcony effect. So that what you see here, the drawing is the first setting is one of the unit is with the balcony, another unit without the balcony. So that each side of the 2 rooms we can set the same situation. That's the reason we can connect the data simultaneously for 4 sides of the facade for different settings. Another 4 corners, in fact, is we're testing the timber structure. Even though now we are testing another test is more on the co-location of the solar energy and food production. Here's one of the early projects. We test the productive facade, including some of different type of the facade on the 4 sides to test. We also collaborate with one of the largest solar energy research lab in Singapore under the NUS, is what we call series Solar Energy Research in Singapore. This we collaborate with them, try to develop the first the digital printing. So you see here is not derived by series certainly. All this picture, in fact, is the solar panel. If I come back to the earlier slide, I see whether I can go back to the early slide. So these are the solar panel. We initially built. We have semi-transparent panel. We have the color panel, back panel, right panel, and digital printing. Here probably maybe the first generation may not be good enough, but in fact one is sunset, one is under the water. As a two photo we use it for the testing. But the technology is getting better now in Singapore for us to do the digital printing. And we also use the wood panel, as what I said, to supply the power. We can change the setting, easy setting to check the to test the different PV panel technology. We have the we also go reach out to our public housing to try to test some of the opinion about the photovoltaic panel. So there's one of the tests we using the survey to try to understand different architecture of the building integrated photovoltaic panel. Another project, initial project, is the protective facade. We also have the setup and other version is how we can co-location to generate the solar energy and food production. This is the first set of the project. We test different species of the plant, food plant, and different requirement, athletic, and also we have also analyze different setting of the protective facade to try to collect the solar energy and also produce the food simultaneously. So here are some of the illustration for our project, and here is what the outlook for our first run of the protective facade. Here also we do some of the subjective survey for the protective facade. Another project, certainly we also interested in the cost ventilation. Our facility also allowed to have to test the cost ventilation. All the window can open. Beside all the window can open. In fact, all the door have the louver to enhance the ventilation so that we can test some of the ventilation. Now, happens showing here, in fact, we're also testing the greenery, the ventilation resistance of the greenery, fall resistance of the greenery. So here are some of the project before we are running. And yeah, there's the cost ventilation project. And then is the first run of the design. In fact, we have 4 projects. This is the 4 project we run beside the solar energy, protective facade, and also retro ventilation. We're also interested in the timber structure. So at the 4 corner, we place different timber structure and try to understand how they deteriorate, color change for a long one, and that we still have there, even though the lab already there around 6 years, but we still keep monitor their moisture content, color change, and what they set up. So that is one of our projects. So we want to see how the timber structure can be used in Singapore because we know this is more carbon neutral. We can build more carbon neutral building. So some general. So I think I may end up here. So see whether we have any. Probably we can. I will give that floor back to Jen.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you for a short and concise presentation as well. Exciting work. Good. So I will, if you just unmute you. Eddie, let's just need to change it here. Okay, good. Great. Thank you very much. I will, well, I've got to try and switch on my camera. So there we go, now you can see me. Great. for the last presentation, which I will present, I'm Dr. Jan Hichu from the University of Pretoria, and I'll be presenting a short presentation on advancing climate adaptation and well, the role that living labs or building technology laboratories can play. I'd just like to start my screen, and then if someone can confirm that they can see it. Let's just see where I am.
Yeah, we can see it, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then there we go. I'm back here. Great. It's my last paper. Great. So like I said, the presentation is titled "Advancing Localized Climate Change Adaptation," and it's really building on the number of records that we broke this year. We all know that we've got a new global high temperature, and the urgency of climate adaptation is certainly always critical, but it's been constantly reminded of how important it is. And in the Southern Hemisphere, or in Southern Africa, we're expecting new high temperatures and questioning how do we implement and develop local climate change adaptation measures, which are appropriate for local conditions. And within that context, I'm trying to think that we need to look for ways that we can move from singular solutions towards more complex solutions, which start addressing behavioral, social, cultural, and technological aspects to ultimately understand the role of technology, which I think we all know. But in these presentations we've seen up to now, we also understand that it's not only about technology, it's about a number of other aspects where we can start translating the theoretical, digital, or conceptual solutions that one might develop into physical experiments that are presented or tested within real world scenarios. And I think, as Andy rightly noted the importance of also seeing how this can inform the built environment in the end. So very briefly, just background to this project is it's part of a pilot study to start developing research infrastructure and capacity at the University of Pretoria. And for this, we've visited and surveyed a number of sample projects and interviewed with researchers or managers from those sites. And the intention was really to understand the planning, development, and construction and management of it. So not only to necessarily only visit the sites and to see what's being done, which is really always very interesting, but also to understand what goes on behind it in the process. So we've managed to define 7 projects thus far and visited some of them. It's in 4 regions. 2 of them in South Africa at CSIR and NHBRC, and then engaged with Eddie at Singapore University, and Elena at Chalmers, and Andy at TU Delft. And then I've also managed to contact and be engaging with the Flex Lab at Berkeley University in California and the Technical University of Denmark as well. So starting to understand and see, I get a general picture of different projects. And obviously there are numerous living labs and building technology laboratories worldwide. And the themes that they cover, as we've all noted here, are really wide. And in many ways, one could think of them as considerations into efficiency, sustainability, resilience as well. And a big driver there is this question of services integration and what that means. And what's really interesting, and I think as Elena started presenting, is the idea of post-occupancy assessments and what does it mean when we work with people in the process. So this is a slide I would have shown at the end, but I always think it's really critical to talk about this in the beginning. These sites, for me, when analyzing them, really presents context for integrated technology application, where we can start integrate and coordinate solutions, but really importantly, starting to work in interdisciplinary research. And there's often lots of talk about it, but it's often really quite complex to achieve. But these sites present the context within one could do this. And I think that is really one of the one of the really important reasons for developing these sites. And certainly, as we've seen, that there's been a shift towards transdisciplinary work as well, where we can start looking into co-designing and expanding the end user in there. Certainly an important theme to further develop as well. These sites also present nested solutions and hierarchies of nested thinking. So I think from a paradigmal thinking of questioning what the trajectory of sustainable thinking is, I think these experimental sites or laboratories start giving us points of higher level sustainable thinking, which is also really important, I think. So apart from interdisciplinary work, we can also see work that starts dealing with ways of nested integrated solutions, and those are really drivers towards resilience and regenerative thinking in the process. So how do they manifest, and what do we see here, and how are they managed in the process? I think one important, really critical quality that I've picked up from reviewing the project is the notion of temporality. And I think it's been mentioned already, is that being temporary presents an opportunity. And suddenly one can build a building that has a very specific focus, but also can change over time. And it's interesting to see that they therefore are often planned around temporary leases, using leftover spaces and so forth. But I've also visited sites where that notion of temporality actually turned into long-term structures. And like colleagues of mine always says, there's nothing as permanent as a temporary solution. And it's not that it's not always intentional, but these sites do play such an important role that I've visited sites which actually start to have heritage status. And there's many reasons for that. I mean, one of it is a question of management as well, but certainly these sites all have significant financial investments associated with them. And therefore, what we're seeing as well is a number of projects where we're starting to look for ways of increasing the sustainability, looking for long-term sustainability in there. And I think that's an important shift that one can explore, is in terms of how do you make this a long-term solution. Within that, though, when you think about that notion of long-term application, that continued flexibility is needed, and that was presented by many, as you've seen so far, is the idea of flexible systems, flexible services, flexible building elements in the process as a means of ultimately optimizing that investment that was undertaken, and that along with that brings along certain inflexibility in there, which I think is critical. So in all, and this just reminded me of Stuart Brand's work on the 6 S's of flexibility, and the site in these cases often presenting the point of flexibility, and it becoming what in notion you say the low road site and that. But certainly there's lots of inquiries about inflexibility in there. And then what I think is also it presents to us an opportunity, as Elena noted, in the HSB building, where there's an inquiry in terms of dismantling the building, what that entails in the process. But there's a number of these sites that one could explore in the process. In order to achieve that, I would argue that we see the scale of the facilities and the experiments being of a smaller scale to enable that. And a number of the sites were much smaller in scale, much more working from ground level effectively. And that is an interesting, I think that makes practical sense in that, but I think in the HSB building, where we start seeing questions of high density living, it certainly presents to us as a point where we're working in an urban age. That would be, I think, a question that one could take further in terms of how that worked, how that can be explored. But what we do see is there's 2 conditions. There's the building as test, that often is explored, and I think really interesting work in there. And then there's the buildings for testing, as you would think, for instance, the Flex Lab, for instance, where it's intentional, a nondescript building where you can undertake research projects. And I think that's an important decision to make if one ever develops it, to understand the nature of that investment that your institute will be making. And then obviously, as I noted and seen in many of the previous projects, these are, from a services and systems point of view, intensive projects with intense inputs, and ultimately requiring significant focus on infrastructure and services, and then also the data management and the data collection in the process. And I think that's as an additional stream they have to work with, and I think it's often considered. And a question that I've seen lots of this working with some of the work that Eddie, for instance, presented, where you start seeing the opportunities of digital twinning to take place. And I'm sure we didn't discuss it in our discussions, but I'm sure there's sorts of opportunities there because of the data that is available in the process. So because of that, I think one thing to not neglect in this process is to understand the role of management of that. And I think people's skills and expertise, as has been often noted by many, are really needed. And that's not only researchers, but actually technical staff, the management of it, and the maintenance of these, which I think is not often necessarily part of the initial project in the conception, really. And but that diversity and range of skills are certainly really important. And many of the respondents I spoke to spoke about the importance of having a focused management role, but then a broad buy-in from institutional support. So multiple people buying into the vision of the project, but really focused management in that. And there's been cases where these ideas of management support, of retaining a vision for a project and continual funding has been lacking, and those really end up being stranded assets. So yeah, certainly an important role to play there. And I think one aspect that I've learned over these from the discussions is the importance of advisory board, then a group that can manage that vision or scope for the project, and in order to use it as an opportunity for further to leverage further work. And yeah, sorry, I'm jumping quite quickly through this, but I think here it's just really important to note that it's not about the building necessarily, but about people. And I think from individuals like us working in the built environment, we often think once the building is built, we've managed to do it. But certainly that's not where it lies. It's really about how do we get the expertise, how do we retain that expertise. And an important notion that was shared with me was one of the managers saying that there's funding to start the project, but often very little to maintain it for the number of years coming. And so in there, there's been a number of ways that the other projects have managed to achieve sustainability by charging cost for data or access to the site, critical to really ultimately achieve long-term sustainability. But certainly these presents for us, I think for all these universities and institutes, ways to leverage their work and a foundation to develop projects, and that critical bridge between theory and practice. So just to conclude very briefly, as I think these building facilities or living labs or building technology laboratories certainly presents the opportunity to build local research capacity, a critical factor for developing contexts as well, like for instance the Southern African region. And similarly, as what Andy noted there, is that it provides an opportunity to promote eco-literacy and the university as a role player in achieving local sustainability or local climate adaptation and resilient systems that are developed. And then finally, I think there's numerous calls from numerous fields already saying that integrated complex solutions are needed, but we need basis or context to do these work. And I think we need to look at the way that integrated systems work together. So my question I would ask, and that I think one could work with, is this question about how can one disseminate projects like these in more broader and other contexts? And is there need for collaboration on a network basis where one could look at ways of not necessarily having to build all the infrastructure in these other contexts, but how can one validate and test a small portion of a possible project to ultimately see and conceptualize further further application of solutions within other contexts to ultimately localize adaptation or sustainable system. Very brief, but I'd really like to thank the colleagues that have engaged with me from the different universities and the CIB and the University of Pretoria that supported us. And if anybody's interested, you can contact me for further discussions. I hope I kept it short enough, and there's some time left for us for comments, questions, and discussions. I just need to find the button to stop sharing now. Apologies, no, I am stuck here.
Normally it's down in the down panel.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
You're looking at something very different now. Oh.
They have the panel either up or down. There is this a lot of icons and there is this green arrow. Yes.
Found it, great. Thank you very much. So somehow we'll all learn how to deal with technology at the end. Thank you very much, everyone. Jeremy, over to you.
Good. Just to start off, while people are thinking of their questions and their points, thank you, fantastic set of presentations. It's amazing what you fit in to 10 minutes.
Jeremy, I'm sorry, but I think we can't hear you. The sound is really bad. I see some people nodding, so it's probably theirs as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might need to carry on if it's not working.
Jeremy, do you mind trying to switch off your camera, and then let's see if you can then, if it's better?
All right, can you hear me now?
Better.
Much better, yes, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so first of all, just thank you very much for, you know, some excellent, very short presentations. And I certainly have a few questions, but what I think we should do is just open the floor to everyone. And I think feel free, we're quite a small group, so feel free to raise your hand and ask some questions. Have you got any from the floor? I know the presenters probably also have some questions. I see Isaac there. Any questions from the floor? Please feel free. I think just raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask your question. I see, is it Mukhadi? Please go ahead, unmute yourself. Yeah, there we go.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning. So I have a question from Dion. I just not sure if I just get your presentation correct, or maybe I just lost something here. You referred the Living Lab for the NHBRC and the CSIR in the South Africa. Am I right?
Just to clarify, those two, I would not consider them as living labs, but necessarily they've been used as building technology laboratories. The one is in some ways more of a demonstration site, and the CSIR site was used many years ago, and starts showing this question of long-term sustainability related to these facilities.
Okay, yeah, that's the things, because I based on the things I know, nobody's just living there and is no activity is just going there. So that's my point. We need to just separate those kind of building construction laboratory to the living lab, because the concept is totally different. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Just checking. Okay, while people are thinking, I'm going to go straight to Elena with one of mine. I liked your living laboratories as a high density building. It's very easy to experiment, I think, as a single unit. But I like the way that you're doing something at kind of high density, something that could be replicated at scale. The particular area I'm quite interested in is the and you mentioned the laundry and as a shared resource. And a lot of the research is showing that in terms of kind of a circular approach, we need to do more sharing, have a lot more sharing. And the way we can engage with industry is to have a kind of product as a service approach. So the cost of that technology, whether it's PV panels or laundry system or grey water system, is funded and maintained by an external technology provider. And I was just very interested to know how far, I can see you've done a lot of projects, and whether that was something that's been explored. What are the contractual relationships with technology providers?
I think it's a very good question, and I'm happy that Sweden has a very strong focus on social culture aspect of technology and its adoption through like cultural lens. And this public laundry thing is a very good, successful example where, of course, if you go to business and say, hey, we want to, instead of everyone buy laundry, we want to buy few, but use them more. But then you take charge on this infrastructure, we buy only from you, it's becoming part of real estate strategy. And it's kind of a lot of calculation behind just this very like socially driven, yes. But the history shows that this is a well-adopted approach in many housing cooperative in Sweden. Why? Because people, first of all, really like to feel that they're doing something good. And this feeling good is also a value which real estate companies can claim they're doing. So instead of you living in the building which doesn't care about these values, you offer them something what creates community, sense of sustainability, practice, and also clear like value of reducing resources. So in this case, it's a very social driven impact, social innovation, we call it in Sweden. I can tell you about a more like fresher example, which is not as easy, is car industry and similar proposal. Instead of having car in each apartment, car in each family, how can we talk about shared pool? And we obviously see, and I live in Göteborg, is a like a homeland of company called Volvo Cars. And obviously they want to sell more cars. But we tried to really debate and discuss, look, Electrolux did this wise step some years ago to really, instead of selling machines, they're selling a service. We should go this direction. This is wise, this is long-term, this is good for society, for individuals, and they will get the need they need in time they need. So in this case, I think behind just technology, it's a lot of discussion, a lot of business evaluation, a lot of long-term strategy, a lot of value co-creation approach. So I think in this way, if we really want big companies change their mind, it's not enough just kilowatt hour saving or CO2 emission. It should be also definitely monetary evaluation and like scenarios planning in the business equivalent. Without that, it's not so easy to convince them.
Okay, no, great, thank you. I mean, it's very interesting because traditionally here, in African villages, people would go and get water together, and when you had piped water, you broke up the social structure. So there's a whole social aspect which is very interesting. Great. Any other questions while people have had a bit of time? Isaac, do you have a question, or you're saving it for a little bit?
Good morning, all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. No, I just want to add on the two aspects that were said by Jan and Dr. Ali. I think this Living Lab presents a high motivation for South Africa, especially the housing industry, because I've looked into what Elana has presented, whereby their project was funded by a housing company, and also look at the things that it tackled, of which is a society issues on how to access things, how to produce, how the future housing will be, how to minimize resources. Then I look also into Andy's presentation, where he talks about the climate, how the climate affects the use of building. And you also look into Sui-Kit presentation on energy modeling. This gives us an opportunity as South Africa, especially if you look what Jan was trying to present. Yes, he has presented houses that are unoccupied because of the socioeconomic situation that we're in. But it gives us an eye-opener that, you know, also us as NHBRC, whereby we do have some houses that we build of technology where people are living. And I have identified all the 4 presentations that have been presented that they affect us directly. And it can also assist us to improve into creating more of the living laboratories, more of the living research, if I may put it that way. And I'm so grateful that Dr. Ali came in to mention the issue that will give us a challenge as NHBRC to start working on issues that affects the society directly rather than solving one element of energy, whereas you still have the use of materials, the gray water, and all these other things. And also, we are so grateful that we have one house that we can present that we did with Dr. Ali called the Net Zero house, of which also touches most of the aspects that have been talked about in the presentation. So it is a great opportunity for us. And I'm so thankful to Jan for his presentation. What I took from him is that temporality presents an opportunity. So for us as in South Africa, we have a big opportunity on the situation that we have to improve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Isaac. Just to check with all the presenters, are you happy for recordings of this to be shared? Because I think, yeah, because of the glitch, obviously we've missed quite an audience. And what we will do as the CIB, and I think I'm picking up that Isaac, the NHBRC here, there's a number of research organizations here that will certainly be interested in looking at them and getting in touch. So can I just check that quickly? Eddie, Elena, Andy, you happy?
Yeah, no problem for me.
Okay, great, great.
Yes,
Okay, any other questions? Andy, I have one for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's very interesting is that you can teach about sustainability, but you need to get to a stage where it's actually integrated.
Yep.
So you teach about sustainable buildings and sustainable design, but if you're at a university that covers finance, that covers food technology, ethics, all sorts of things, how do you start integrating sustainability in such a way that students reflect on their own lives and what they choose as a career, what they choose, who they work with? You know, do they go out after working with Andy and then go and work with Chevron? Do you see what I'm saying? Is that I think it's a and I think that really is the kind of big challenge for universities now, is their role to fundamentally change the way society works. So a big question for you, Andy, because you've done now quite a lot of work in that area.
True. Yeah, thanks for your question, Jeremy. By the way, good to see you, although you're not visible now. Yeah. We had a short glimpse of you. But yeah, normally I would give a much more extensive presentation on how we approach sustainability on our campus. Jan has seen that, I think, last July when we had the Atlas for Hope conference. So I think as a university, of course, we are founded on science, on scientific evidence. So I always say measuring is knowing. So in Dutch, it sounds better, meten is weten, because then you know actually where the biggest trouble actually lies in sustainability on the campus. So when you start carbon accounting, then you see immediately what are the big chunks and where you can make big progress. We communicate this to our community, not just students, but also staff, support, management. Externally also, I do a lot of presentations to other organizations to do similar things. So the awareness, I think, is very important. It starts to sink in now with all people from the community here on the campus that if we really want to achieve what everybody screams like, yeah, we need to be carbon neutral by 2040 or 2030 or 2035, that whichever date you name, it requires a lot of effort in not just things that people always accept, like energy efficiency or circular procurement or sustainable building. Those are things that people will accept, like, yes, of course, we need to do that. But also behavioral change is very important. And that refers, for instance, to offering different types of food, coming with a travel policy that we're changing. And I see that the students are actually, although some of them think like, hey, we've just had Corona times, let us travel now. They are aware of this, and there's quite some student organizations that think deeply about where to go to if they make a trip or an excursion or exchange, and how to get there in a sustainable way if they have to travel. And that, I think, is a seed planted already early in education, that you know, it's a different world. We can't behave as if nothing's happening anymore, and we need to be conscious about the decisions we take. And that also applies to students. So what I see, I think that my students would never end up with Shell unless it's for a protest, I guess, or Chevron. But yeah, you know, we're not saints. None of us is, I guess. People have their lives and they need to take their own decisions. And the only thing we can do is to inform them with all the information, to inspire them with the options, sustainable options. And yeah, having living labs actually makes that really clear to everyone, because it's all around you. And therefore, I think the living lab approach should be, the basis for all in universities.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Andy. I think that gives, the rationale really for the biggest rationale for a living lab is that it's the experience, it's the observation. And I'm doing quite an interesting project with environmental psychology, where you reflect on your own living patterns. Mm-hmm. And it's very much that, is that you then change. So great. Okay, I have another question. I'm going to just do one or two more before we finish, because I've got one for Eddie, which is related to this idea of behavior, and it's a difficult one, and it's one that building researchers generally steer away. They like the kit, they like the photovoltaic systems, all the technologies, but the key performance of those measurements is the alignment with the internal patterns of behavior. So I was wanting to know really from kind of Eddie, how much research was being done in parallel with the kind of habits of people living in buildings that would eat the greenery, and is the energy generated, in a way that's aligned to living patterns, that sort of thing, because I think that's going to be one of the keys, is how do you align what is produced in sustainable technologies with the living and working patterns, and which do you change? How do you get that alignment to work?
Okay, sorry that first I want to sorry that I cannot turn on my camera because the host stopped my camera, so that I cannot turn on. But I get your question. In fact, we have two different labs, as what I said. When we got the donation from the donor, we split it to two different laboratory. One is our T-Square lab, the Tropical Technology Laboratory, particularly focused on the solar energy and the facade design. But we also have another lab, is what I said, a smart green home. So it's more on the home setting. We have all the kitchen, we have all the living room and bedroom design. And we try to, in fact, this facility is we try to focus on the human behavior, as what you said. And also some of the other technology we can apply to change the behavior. Unfortunately, when we completed our laboratory with the COVID-19 hit, we have a lot of the research cannot proceed because the ILB issue, we cannot have the subject staying in the facility. So now we are trying to run it up, but in fact the laboratory is the housing in our Leicester Energy Building. The Leicester Energy Building, we already have a lot of sensors there to monitor all the user in the building. We also apply all the wearing technology, including the iWatch, Fitbit, and other wearing technology. Try to get the feedback from the user how to use the building, and also